everyone, this is Amanda Borchel-Dan.
And I'm Jessica Steinberg,
your host for Times Will Tell,
a weekly podcast from the Times of Israel. Hey, Times Will Tell listeners, it is Jessica Steinberg, and I am here with the people behind New Legend, a company which finances, develops, produces, and distributes commercial TV. As you guys all know, TV is a very big deal here in Israel, and not just for watching. We've got so many TV shows that have come out of Israel that are on all the major streaming platforms, film as well, of course. We're actually in the week of the Jerusalem Film Festival, which opened on Thursday night. But we're not talking about that specifically. We are talking about an accelerator that has partnered with the Jerusalem Film and Television Fund to create new projects. Partners who have come from all different parts of the industry, including one partner who is from the high-tech industry. We've got Oded Turgeman, who's the co-founder and director of content for New Legend. Say hi, Oded.
Hello. Hi.
And we've got Gal Yashar, who is the CEO of New Legend. Say hello, Gal.
Hi, everybody.
So we're going to talk about what they're doing with their accelerator. We'll probably talk a little bit about the TV industry in general in Israel and why it is that they decided to put this accelerator together. And actually, that's probably a good place to start with.
So first of all, what's interesting is the fact that we joined together with Meitav investment house, which actually invested in the company, and together we established two funds.
I would imagine this is a very new kind of thing to have an investment house invest in content in TV production.
Definitely. It can bring a lot of new money to the market, which is kind of small.
If you could give us a little bit of background about how that came together. Was this something that's been in the works for a long time? Is this something that you put together? If you could give a little bit of the history.
So actually, New Legend is established 2.5 years ago. And after a long due diligence done by Meitav Investment House, they decided to invest in the company. Meitav is actually one of the leading and largest investment house in Israel. It's a public trade company. It was a long journey to actually combine content industry with the finance industry, that people will understand that this is something that worth investing in. It's traditionally, everybody thought it's a very big risk to invest in content.
Right.
In the past. Now, with the demand in the market, it's definitely look like something very interesting. And this is why we established the funds that give us a lot of interest in our work. But the real story is Oded and Asaf, because they're really coming from the industry. I'm coming from the high-tech.
Look, he's the responsible adult. If you have a question about authorization, we go to him. For me, money people were always like, characters from Wall Street.
Wall Street, the movie, right?
Yeah, Wall Street, the movie, the sharks. They're like cold-hearted and unrelatable to me because, I went to the Sam Spiegel Film School, and then I went to the American Film Institute, which is what made me end up here in Los Angeles, talking to you from Los Angeles. And I think that, to me, it was so interesting because the first time that sort of a gal brought us into the world of financing in Israel through, we met with Meitav, I realized that not only, they're not those characters from, from Wolf of Wall Street, Wall Street, the movie. They're just, actually super nice and empathetic, and are just excited to explore this new field for them, which is content. It's an adventure for them. And I think that, quite honestly, they're committed to supporting Israeli talent, not less than us, and believing in Israel. And they started saying these things that I think that we learned from, which is, it was high-tech nation, and now it's going to be a content nation. So I think they were just looking like every listener that you have, looking at what's happening in TV today. At the same time, during COVID, a lot of people were just watching a lot more. It was clear that there is a timing that was right for them to come into this. And I think what Gal was talking about in terms of the due diligence was, look, they manage a lot of money. Just for the listeners, I think, and every time they look at me weird when I say the number, because the number has changed from the last time I said it. So I remember one meeting, I said, you guys are managing so much money, managing $60 billion, and I got dirty looks. Because by the time I said it, they were already managing $65 billion.
Right.
And so to me, it's like funny money, in a way, because, we grew up from independent producers that, are sort of knock on doors to get money. And suddenly there's a switch of mindset because you are on the side that represents money. And now you go, okay, be careful what you wish for.
For our listeners, when we talk about Meitav and we talk about 65 billion or 70 billion, like you said, funny money, monopoly money, but real money, that is an Israeli fund. I just want to make that clear, correct? It's Israeli funds that are being managed by Meitav. In other words, the money is from Israeli investors.
Yeah, it's an investment house.
But it's nothing to do with our funds, yes?
No, of course. Just to understand, the money backing New Legend is from an Israeli fund, an Israeli investment fund. And that's just something that wouldn't have happened necessarily even 20 years ago or 25 years ago. So I just wanted to make that clear. Now, Oded, to come back to you, you've been in this world of content. As you said, you graduated from Sam Spiegel, which is a film school in Jerusalem, and then you went to American Film Institute. You're living in LA. You've been working in this world for a long time. And as you mentioned just now, you're probably used to, like many Israeli producers, knocking on doors to find the money. A paradigm shift for Israeli content to say, Israeli content has always gone to places like the Jerusalem Film Fund, to the government, to local government, to national government, to get the money to make these award-winning films and TV shows that we all count on. This is going to be something very different. Now take us back to where you were at one time to give us a sense of how you did your work and now how it's going to really change for you.
I was focused for, I think, half a century in animation and in kids animation and in primetime animation, and I got a phone call. I literally I think it started with this phone call from a friend from Israel who said, you got to meet this producer. And at the time, and I'm not going to mention name, it was after I had like a bad experience with an Israeli format which came to me, and I put together like a pilot offer from an American studio, and they ended up, with a female creator, and then they ended up choosing, going with a different showrunner who had a bigger name. And I said, this is not the show. This is not, should be driven by a female. And the whole experience was so, awkward and difficult for me that I told myself, okay, that was nice, never again. And, and just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. It's in a way, I got this call and I said, listen, I don't want to deal with live action. I'm happy in the world of animation. He said, no, you have to meet this producer. And the producer was Asaf Nawi, who became our, who was our partner in Israel, who is a prominent producer in Israel. He's probably got, I don't know, a lot of people at all that no one has anything bad to say about. He's that guy. He's that guy that works years in Israel and everybody trusts and loves. And you go like, hold on.
That's unusual, right?
Yeah, it's unusual. There's a lot of, my joke is there's a lot of oysters with just a few pearls, right? And then he's definitely one of the pearls. He's, and he's so successful. And he's the guy you go to when a big American production comes to Israel and they go like, hey, we want someone that knows how it goes. So Homeland, when it came to Israel, he's the guy that Conan O'Brien picks up the phone and said, hey, I want to shoot a segment in Israel, produce it for me. And that happened. And then he started a very impressive content business that is doing very well in Israel, including a show called Nephew from Hell that got a 3 seasons order. I don't think that ever happened in any television. And so he's that guy, and he calls me and he says, look, this other friend of ours, who's your childhood friend, says, I got to work with you. And I literally had this conversation with him where I said, why? And he's like, he said, so we should try it. So he came here to LA with a few projects. One of them was so exciting. It's called Fresh Meat. Two female creators who went to Sam Spiegel, but then before they did, in their army experience, they were in the unit called Seyeret Matkal, which a lot of Israelis and non-Israelis know from the Entebbe operation, from having a prime minister, and that's from that unit so many times, and Bibi and Bennett, and so. But the interesting thing about that they were telling it from the female point of view of someone in that unit. So it was sort of like that Downton Abbey experience of like seeing, Downton
Abbey, Seyeret Matkal. I don't really think of those two things in one sentence, but that's what it is. Okay, they're the fresh meat in the unit.
Yeah, I guess the royalty being, and that's their commentary on it, of course. The royalty being the soldiers who fight, and sort of like the servants are the ones who don't. And you see the two worlds and how they collide and interact. And that was very exciting because it was a fresh point of view and something that, anyways, is interesting to us to see. So he brought that, and he came to LA, and we went with this in the same week to A&E Studios and to Netflix. Both were interested. A&E ended up taking it on, and we have been developing it with them. And now it's really getting momentum. That was like the sort of the inception of like, and then Asaf went back to Israel, and he was like, called me up, and he says, what we just did never happened before. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, something that wasn't yet produced in Israel, that was not even developed yet. Yeah, it was just a paper idea. That was a deal like that was never done. We should start a company. And so he met with Gal in Israel. And I think the story changed completely. Gal's that responsible adult who he is the link to, he got Meitav to look at us. And I guess that what's genius about it is, how do you put all that in the language of financing and explain to them that when they're investing in something like this, the ROI, like the return of investment, which is going to be similar to the high tech, except, and here's the exciting part, it's less risky. And you go like, what? How is that less risky? Because, believe it or not, people kind of tend to forget, because they see all the successes of high tech in the media, that for every success, there's so many, companies that fail and don't make it. With entertainment, actually, the success rate is higher. So it balances off, and that goes into all these things I don't really understand much about, like Excel sheets and stuff.
We're going to take a quick break. When we're back, we'll talk a little bit more with Gal Yashar and Oded Turgeman from New Legend about private funding, investment funding in the Israeli film and TV industry. Hi, Times Will Tell listeners. We're glad you're with us for Times Will Tell, our weekly Times of Israel podcast. You should also check out our daily briefing, the 15-minute podcast dropped every Sunday through Thursday, in which we speak to our fellow Times of Israel reporters and correspondents, covering the very latest news and headlines. You can subscribe to the daily briefing wherever you find your podcasts. We're back with Gal Yashar and Oded Turgeman from New Legend, a new kind of film fund. Gal, tell us how you convinced Meitav and how you convinced this kind of investment to come to content, even though, as Oded is explaining to us, it's actually less risky. Still, it was a big new field, I imagine, for this investment fund to come into.
So actually, when you look at the content industry, it's look very similar to real estate.
How?
You need to develop, okay? You need to build. You need to finance all this through. You need, for example, to have a bond, a completion bond. It's the same in both cases. So I think when you create the right financial model and you bring it to financial people, of course they will correct you, but if they see the logic, they immediately understand. And I think what really was important in all of this is the fact that this market, the demand in this market is so huge, is so much growing. It's doubled itself in 2 years. You know, it's the streaming war between all of them. It's creating endless demand.
Was it hard to convince them once you figured out the way to explain it and to show its similarities, for instance, to the real estate market? Was it a hard sell?
It was not hard, it was long, because this is a very professional people. So everything that you say must be exactly and accurate. And they needed to learn a new business, different business models, different, what is a movie, how you produce it,
right.
what is executive fee, what is so many things, and they needed to learn it through, and we were lucky that we have David Alaluf, which is the head of the alternative funds. This guy put many hours into us. He didn't give up. He learned the field. I think he knows better than me for now, much better than me about everything to do with content. And after they learn and understand everything, they said, yes, there is a business. And it's interesting, and I think the thing that makes the difference is the team. Is the fact that they have Oded and Asaf, and they can really trust them and see that they know how to deliver.
Gal, another question for you. Is the model that you've created for your company, for A New Legend, you mentioned the names behind Meitav, I used to be a business writer in Israel for Bloomberg. They're some of the biggest names out there in the Israeli finance world. Is the world that you've created for New Legend, is it similar to the way the content world has been set up in the US, or is it a different model completely, or are there some similarities, some differences?
Well, what we did, not me, it's a team, we created a financial model that based on 2 funds. The fact that we have a fund that gives loans to American films, and in the other end, we have a fund that actually invests in a very special way. We are investing in slate of development slate with talents, okay, and producing slate with broadcaster, and we have also development slate with our accelerator. So these 2 funds combination is the smart things that we behind this financing to make sure that our investors have a great profit and with the reduction of the risk, because risk exists, but if you do it with great talent that Oded brings us, it can make the difference. And of course, our unique model of accelerator, which we will be happy to tell you about because it's really interesting.
Right. So that's led to my next question. Thanks. Oded, tell us about the accelerator now, because of course that's really what's behind this whole interview. But we needed to sort of give some of the background so that we can all understand what's happening. Tell us about the accelerator and what it means in real terms right now.
I think the accelerator is in a way a system that was designed to, locate or identify, the next successful content that could be internationally successful coming out of Israel. And the way we designed it, it's together with the Jerusalem Film Fund, was to, first of all, reach out to creators who, have made something already and are established, which is the first sort of filter. And after that, and they have to prove that they did. And, so after that, and we got almost 200 submissions, and we've sort of, read through everything and whittled it down to 30. The second filter was to make sure that the buyers, that the guys that are coming from, and I'll talk about that in a minute, because it was the first time ever, I think, that, these platforms sat together and looked at content in the same room. The second step was, which is really, I think the secret of the success, or the key to that success, it's not a secret now anymore, is that we sent those 30 that we chose out of the, almost 200 to the buyers. And we said, hey, can you rate your favorites? Just like 12. Just give us the 12 ones that you like the best. And they're like, it's one of these things where you don't know what's going to come back, because a lot of Hollywood is built on, oh my God, there's the day of the pitch, and it's almost like a first date. And if you screw it up, if you mess it up, in a nicer language, then there's no going back. And sometimes millions of dollars are invested in that first date. And then, there's no second date. And the truth is, a lot of times that first date experience, could be improved, and you could get to a second date and potentially to a meaningful relationship. So the way to do that was to send them, and we got the response. And the overwhelming thing was that we not only got the response, we got a more detailed response than if we went and did 30 pitches. So we took all that info, we took all that data, and we picked 11 projects. We picked 12, but one didn't work out. And then those are the 11 projects that they came to hear their pitches. So now you have buyers who are coming not to a blind date. They're coming to something that, in a way, they helped shape. So that was the second part of why it was successful. And my joke about it is, like, we have 11 projects, and 7 of them already have interest, and some of them multiple interests from the different buyers. And another thing that was exciting to see is that all the local broadcasters and streamers came to that event, all of the Israeli ones. And the American ones, like the outside of Israel ones were, we had Larry Tenz, who's heading all Netflix in Europe, Middle East, and Africa, who came with Anna Egler, who's all of Eastern Europe and now opening their branch in Warsaw. We had we had A&E Studios president, and I think that's, as I mentioned before, that's a relationship that's been building, and I hope that we'll come back on and tell you more about that, because some great things are coming together. We had Mia Hollinger, came from HBO. She's the one who, did Bridgestone there. She did White Lotus in HBO. She's behind J.J. Abrams, now canceled show. But this is the level of people that were in the room. There are decision makers, there are buyers, and we had ZDF Studios from Germany and Network. And the funny thing is, we had Disney Plus that was confirmed to come, and he some issues that he couldn't come. But then guess what? He got the materials. Now he is coming to Israel now to meet with the creators separately. Wow. Because he was so intrigued and excited about the materials that he saw. So you have Disney Plus, HBO, and Netflix, who are fierce competitors, sitting in the same room, hearing pitches, giving so that I just realized we didn't do this going like, hey, well, let's do something that no one else did in the world. We just realized that never happened. That never happened before, ever, anywhere.
By the way, all the Israeli broadcasts also joined, of course.
Hot, yes, etc.
Yes, and they are interested in it.
So we're just about out of time. Last question. You brought all these people together. I mean, it sounds like you guys could do a little bit about the peace process as well, but fine, we'll let that come next, because you've brought all these people into the room together. And clearly it has a lot to do with this model that you're creating, and it also has to do with, bottom line, Israeli content, which is pretty much on the top of the pile right now, or at the top of the pile with the others. So give me a final line about what it is that everyone is coming to see, what it is about Israeli content that draws people, that has drawn investors, that allowed you to choose from 200 proposals, and then you had to whittle it down to 12 and now 11. What is it about Israeli content? And then we'll end with that. One sentence. Go ahead.
One sentence would be, and I have to quote the person who told me that. Lee Mason from Disney Plus said, you know what it is about Israeli content that everybody is so easy to relate to? It's always about family. Even if it's about a man with a gun in Gaza, it is about family.
Okay, like it. Gal?
I would say it's amazing people and talent that really knows how to create amazing stories. It's the people. It's the people that I fell in love with.
I appreciate your one sentence limit also. Gal Yashar and Oded Turgeman, thank you very much for being with us today. We'll, of course, be linking to an article as well that people can read a little bit more about New Legend and what they're going to be doing. But in the meantime, we look forward to hearing more good things from you about what you'll be working on.
Thank you very much, Jessica.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much for listening to Times Will Tell from the Times of Israel, and thanks to our producer, Gilad Brownstein.
Please subscribe wherever you find your podcasts and check out our daily briefing news show every Sunday through Thursday.
Like what you hear? Consider rating us on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to spread the word.
Until next week.
Shalom.